minimize that. So can you still hear me? Is that better? How about that? We are about 30 to 60 seconds delay, so if you respond in chat, it'll be quicker. Hear me now. Sorry about that. Do. All right. No. Yes. Valerie says yes. Etienne? Hear me now? Let's see. Let me give it another start. Good to hear. All right. Thank you. Sorry about that. I had this tested out with Arvind just a little bit ago, and I thought I had it nailed, but I think I closed my mic and opened it again. Thank you for those confirmations. Thank you for everybody being here. Sorry for the little bit delay. There's a couple of things going on today. I'm on a new time zone. I'm moving to Idaho, so I'm actually in a hotel room right now, and so I'm hoping the internet holds up. I'm hoping that I have everything for you that you need. And yesterday I had a BSOD on this box, so I'm like a little nervous, but I think we'll get through it. I think we're good. We'll survive an hour and a half or so. I appreciate everybody here. I hope you're all safe and well. Today we're going to be talking about database access queries and tips. And we do this the first and third Tuesday of each month, 9 o'clock Mountain Time, North America. And we haven't dialed into another ZENcast for a different time zone yet, but we're working on that. We're getting a lot of feedback from you guys, as well as feedback from management that they are appreciating this forum. So we appreciate that you're here, and I hope this forum works for you and gives you some additional input on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis. So ZENcast Live will do a little bit of house cleaning first. You can log into YouTube chat, which some of you have, and we can converse there. You can direct message people with the @ sign and their name, and you can direct message them, and they get a little highlight, as you saw with the Microfocus support and training. And then exclamation commands, if you see those in my presentation, those are to get links. So for instance, for this PPTX, we're going to do an exclamation PPTX, and a link should show up here so that you can just click on the link for this presentation and download it from my filer, so that you can follow along there, or you can follow along as we go on screen. But that way you can get to it, and if you're watching this recording, you probably have this in the message window, and you can grab it as well. So thank you again for being here. Let's go on with some things. Subscribe and notifications. If you like this particular ZENcast, please do a like. Subscribe to this channel, and you get notifications when we're going live. And then the presentation recording and description is here as well. A couple of the settings might be to turn autoplay off. So if you accidentally move away and next thing trying to get back to us, we don't want you to hesitate with that. And then having your quality to 720/60p. Okay. This week, as I said, database access queries and tips, desktop containers and admin studio next week, or in 2 weeks. So I'm excited about that. We're going to package some stuff up. We covered a little bit about desktop containers before, but we didn't cover anything on admin studio. So I'm hoping to cover a little bit of both. And of course, down the line. Now, these may change because we know update 2 is coming up. The beta for 2, if you want to subscribe, we'll get to that in a minute, is coming up. And so if a new product comes out, or we get a PM, we want to get them in here right away to get you the latest news. So we're gonna, they may change, but this is what I set aside, so at least you can plan for something and understand which days we're doing what, excuse me. So, first things first, Microfocus changes. Have you been to your portal? Okay, we're slowly catching up. We appreciate your patience on this. We know it's been very painful for some of you on the portal site, the customer portal site, we've done some major changes in getting the attachment, the Novell, the Microfocus, the other entities all into, they're trying to put it all into one system. So a few things were missed, a few things were having a problem with. If you need temporary licenses and you can't get to your portal, email customer care at Microfocus. Microfocus portal navigation is that link there. So if you download this, you'll have this. There's also a series of tutorials of moving around through the portal. So logging into Microfocus and what to do. There's the training is a portal navigation, and then logging into Microfocus. There's a TID out there as well. So 7024964. Now, we did turn on the old portal for a limited time. Because if you're in production and you're trying to do an upgrade and you can't get to your portal, everything stops. So take note of the www.novell.com/center, and you'll be able to get to your old portal, your old keys, your downloads, and those types of things if you can't get to your new one. We, of course, want you to use your new one. Don't make any new cases in the old portal. We won't get them because that system is being deprecated. And of course, you can email zen@microfocus.com or myself, paul.pedron@microfocus.com, and we'll assist you however we can. So, but there's a few links there, so if you download this presentation, you'll have those links as well. Now, coming up, we're currently on ZCM 2020 Update 1. You have a ZDC, you have agent cleanup with a TID there. Online update security patches for February. I haven't seen them come out yet. Should be any day now. Okay, that's their cadence of every 3 months. Also, Zenworks 2020 Update 2 beta program is out there. Should you want to, you can either email zen@microfocus.com, or you can go out. Let me see if I can get this over to the other screen so you can see it. We're going to do this. There's out on the forums, our community forums, you can take this on. Now, if you haven't been in a beta program, the beta programs were really helpful for me when I was an administrator working as a customer. They would give me insight directly to ask questions about certain features, about certain things. You can throw it up in a test environment. You also can be a lighthouse customer if you wanted to take it on first, be on the bleeding edge, which is what we did with a couple of the betas. So at least you got an insight on what's coming down the road for your next migration to Zenworks 2020. So give it a thought, and if you're able to do that, please go out to the site, and you can see that you just email zen@microfocus.com, and we'll get you on the list and start planning. Looks like the first call is February 24th. Okay, so it's next week? Not next week. Next week, 24, I'm trying to add. Yeah, so the week after. So be aware that that's coming up, and participate if you can. Also, we're ZCM, obviously, that was a suite. ZCM 2020 Update 1. TID is for the ZDC and agent cleanup. That's a repeat. But we have the February PRU is out, and then the extended support for ZCM 2017 ends April 2021. So if you haven't migrated yet, look at the documentation, look at the cookbooks, and get an idea of what you need for your system requirements, and do the migration. If you need help with that, give us a ring. Okay. But they extended that support last year. It was October, and this year for Zenworks, if you go out to the product life cycle, you can see it's April. Okay. And Z News is back. I wonder if I still have this connected. 192.168.127. If you haven't been on Z News is starting to come back live. It came back beginning of the year, about maybe December. And Z News is in your ZCC. So if we log in here and we go to the home page at the bottom, you'll see at the bottom that Z News. We don't have anything in this particular one. I believe this one's in my isolated network, so I believe there's a couple of things in there at this point. So double check your Z News. Just another way of us getting information to you that's up and coming. You have imaging driver updates, and don't forget about Patch Finder. Patch Finder is a great way to find what you need patched on your particular version of Zenworks. So let's say you're Zenworks Configuration Management, you are Zenworks 2017 Update 2. You can see these are all the updates that you have available to you. Going to Update 4, or then you also have, if you want to go to 2020, right? So, but this is all in the 17 realm. Okay, so don't forget about Patch Finder. It's a real great utility. OWS Suite. Zenworks extension for Open Workgroup Suite is available. You can actually extend your Open Workgroup Suite to add the additional components of the Zenworks Configuration Management Suite, which includes desktop containers, asset management, full disk encryption, and so forth. Limited service desk, and Zenworks Patch Management discount. So if you've been wanting to get some of those other things in your OWS suite, you can do that now. Also, I don't have experience in the academic suites, but I believe there's the academics have a Zenworks suite, or it's just discounted, but I know it's named something different. But anyway, so you can get that. Saw that on the site and wanted to make sure you were aware of that. Also, Microfocus desktop containers. Next time we will be covering this. Now, I won't be doing the server. I'll be doing basically the packaging of apps, which you can then bundle in Zenworks and deploy, either in Admin Studio or MFDC. But the Turbo Hub is great for at-home workers. You can actually distribute your packages to your home workers through this streaming service, and that's included in MFDC now. And then new release coming up is 21.1. And I hope to get Jason or somebody on here that can give us a demo on that. So we're looking forward to getting some of those. But we do have a couple of webinars out there. The Zenworks Desktop Containers and Connected Backup on Demand. Ron Van Herk did that, I think, a month ago. And then being able to split applications. You guys are putting things on the forums. Keep it up. We appreciate this. Being able, you have a question, go out to our forums, whether it's Zenworks Desktop Containers, whether it's a patch management, endpoint security, whatever it is. Post them out here so that we, either partners, your peers, other customers, us support backline people also monitor this. We love to try and get you answers so that you can keep moving on with what you're trying to do in your projects. Okay. Patch Tuesday highlights, February 2021, should be out anytime now. I did check yesterday. It wasn't out yet, but it normally comes out mid-month because we're waiting until after Patch Tuesday, right? And then we got those highlights. February 2021 Servicing Stack Update recommendation was another patch forum post. So if you're having some issues with that, we have some recommendation and some solutions there. And also we're continually adding, and I noticed on the forum we have the what do you call it? Ideas Exchange, right? And on the Ideas Exchange, I noticed the other day that you're looking for other products to be in patch. Well, Add Zoom US is now coming to the patch channel, so you can patch Zoom since it's become most popular in this pandemic. So keep those coming. We look at these, we find solutions for these, and we want you to be able to integrate these into your daily Zenworks environment if you need them. Also, there's other things like stories out there. Patch management story, how it was integrated into Meyer software. So this is a success story. If you have a success story, you feel that your particular environment, you went through a particular process and Zenworks just solved that was a solution to you, let us know. We'd like to talk to you about being a success story. Okay. Over to Service Desk. We're on 8.2. remember to check that Appliance Online update. I checked this weekend, didn't see any yet, but they should be coming out sometime in February. And then Open Horizon Conference, there's a couple of presentations there about Service Desk. So if you're getting into Service Desk or you want to see how it works, this one was a good one for getting understanding a little bit how the process is for setting it up in configuration. ZRS, use ZRS. This was another forum post. Use ZRS to show if FD is encrypted. Okay. You can use ZRS for a lot of different things. It's currently at version 7.2. It's a little bit more flexible, but to understand it, it's a little more difficult to. It's not difficult to prop up. It's just has a different way of form. I mean, you're getting into all the different tables, and so there are a couple of really good presentations out there about Zenworks Reporting Server that Jason's put up, and helps you walk through creating some of these reports. And for instance, this particular one is one of them, which tells you how to step through to achieve this particular report in ZRS. So know that those are out there. Be aware that forum's there, the Zenworks forums and Zenworks tips and information. It's really handy. Do know that the ZMM, Zenworks Mobile Management, not the Zenworks Configuration Management mobile devices, but Zenworks Mobile Management, which was a legacy product, support ended December 2020. So hopefully you've migrated all those devices over to Zenworks Configuration Management, and now you're managing them through the ZCC. If you haven't done that yet, know that the support has ended, and let us know if you need help moving that stuff over. Okay. ZAM, there's a couple of, there's an interesting article about asset management for education that Gartner put out. And of course, Gartner is an interesting platform that tries to stay unbiased, and so for being on there, it's good to be able to see different Microfocus products being presented out there. Hi Don, thanks for joining us. Yeah, staying warm. I don't know if you got on early, but we're staying warm because it's snowing outside. But yeah, we're staying warm. Thanks. So Gartner Insights, I don't see it coming up. Let's try and again, there it is. Okay. So it's really a great interview about what's going on with asset management and an unbiased situation there. Microfocus UVerse 2021 is coming up March 23rd through 25th. Register for your time zones, and the link is right here. It's pretty convenient to register, and if you can make it, you can get into some of the speakers and go through it virtually at least. Recording. So webinar recordings are all recorded. We had a 3-part series from a partner in Microfocus in the UK, European Union, actually, and those 3 are there. I don't know when it's going to be actually on the webinar index soon, but the link to those recordings, the link to the webinar recordings are here, and you can actually see them come up and join them and view them. Some of them are also posted on the YouTube. Okay. Then Open Horizon Summit. Again, there's other things out there. So if you're looking for a service desk, trying to figure out how service desk works or how imaging works, there's some great resources out here for you. So articles. Oh, the IDC. This is a big one. IDC MarketScape names Microfocus a major player for unified endpoint management. So we're making the trends, which is great, and that's kudos to you guys who are into Zenworks, administering Zenworks, and getting the word out there, because this is a great article about where we stand and that we're hitting the mark and moving forward. So you can see service desk, desktop containers, all the things are at least brought up in that article. So the other article I found interesting this week was Muskin Family Care and how they used Zenworks to help support them in their family care facility. Surveys, there's a couple of surveys. Let other IT professionals know how great Zenworks is. Again, Gartner Peer Insights. If you log in, you can do a survey. Let Gartner know how you're using Zenworks and how you feel about it. And then also there's a progress survey. Thank you for those that have filled this out. How are we doing with the ZENcast? Is it providing the right content? What would you like to see? Give your input here so that we can continually make this a better forum for you. Okay, so that's through the news. Today's agenda, we recap device and user policies, and I'll just recap now. We did a couple of policies last time. We attempted a Windows group policy, and there's Arvind. Hi, Arvind. Oh, he's getting ready.
Hello.
There he is.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Let me see if everybody else can hear you. Stand by a sec. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Arvind.
Hi, I'm
Yeah.
Arvind, and actually, I've been with Zenworks for almost 12 to 14 years now with the product, and been part of several phases of the product and releases, working on separate components from server and agent, so different roles. So yeah, I'm here working in the Zenworks backline team here, so with Paul. So yeah,
Yeah. Thanks for
thank
joining
you.
us today, Arvind. Yes. I told them that you were my counterpart and expert on databases, since I'm just I still call myself a noob, even though I've been doing it for a little bit. But thanks for joining us today. I'm just doing today's agenda, so you came in at a good time. We're recapping. We did a Windows group policy update last time through Zenworks, and one thing I didn't do is I did Windows updates on the device, so I was waiting for a reboot in order to actually apply that. So that's one reason why that one didn't work. But for the most part, we did some bookmarks and those types of things. So I hope you got some ideas out of policies that can help simplify your environment out there. Today we're going to go into database access queries and tips. System requirements, vendor version. We're going to talk about connections, how to connect, access utilities, scenarios, best practices, and query statements. So again, we have Arvind on here. Arvind, chime in at any time. I'm currently on the system requirements page because Arvind can't see what I'm displaying. I don't think so. He's here by audio, but I think he has my
Okay.
PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So, and I added some of those details that you were talking about. So, Arvind's a great resource. Again, if you've had a database issue, you might have had Arvind on the support call with you. We're currently covering the system requirements. Yeah, Don says Arvind is amazing. And thanks, Jeff. Glad you can hear him just fine. Appreciate you giving that shout out because my audio wasn't. Arvind, even though we did the audio update, I started the first 3 minutes and there's no audio. It's like, I
Oh,
tell you,
wow.
it's like, I think because I turned my mic off for a minute and it lost connection. So, but we're back on, and that's why they're shouting out. Yes, we can hear them, so that's good. So we have vendor versions. Make sure you check system requirements, and these links here should give you some of those. Oops, wait a minute. Let me go back. They aren't links; they're just titles. Okay, so we have, make sure you have the right version for the right version of the Zenworks products you're using. Okay, it's very important that you do that so that we can support it and you don't have conditions that are an issue. You can see there ZCM 2017, 2020, and ZSD. Um, Again, Microfocus only actually upgrades the OEM Postgres SQL embedded database, right? So if you have an external Postgres, a lot of times you'll have a DBA if you're like an Oracle shop, sometimes an MS SQL shop. Not always though. Sometimes on the smaller shops you're got the multiple hats on, right? So you may need to have some of this, and that's what today's ZENcast is for, is for the Zenworks administrators who need to administer some of these databases. But we're going to cover all of them the best we can. There's some database particulars out there, like case sensitivity for admin login for PostgreSQL, or query statements in Oracle, right? They're case sensitive. And then MS-SQL has some compatibility mode. Now, these are documented, so make sure you look at that documentation real well as you go through these. There are some database administrators like SA, local Windows login, Vertica user, some of the database. Remember, we have new in 2020 is that Vertica database, right? So there's different databases out there. And the connection files. Oh, that's what I wanted to do. Hang on a second. Let's go to, where is Arvind? I'm going to go ahead and bring up my, yeah, this guy right here. We're going to bring up this guy. So, oh, that's going to, yeah, let's do this. Let's close this. Let's move this over so you guys can see. And I hope that's big enough. And going into, I'm looking at these XML files. And Arvind, so the XML files to connect are pretty much, I mean, what do they have in them? I'm going to go to them on the screen, but what do they have in them?
So under the data model, is that what you're looking at, correct?
Yeah, we're looking at the data model.
Yeah. So from the Vertica perspective, in general, we have different XMLs for different databases, which are Zenworks and Audit, and then they carry their username and password as encrypted, or we call that obfuscated. But it also, the XML files is where we keep all the database connection information, where a server would talk to a different databases based on these information for Zenworks and Audit. And likewise, we have also introduced one for Vertica. So as when you turn on Vertica in your zone, you would see that those files would also carry the information that allows Zenworks servers to talk to the Vertica backend, and that way they keep fetching all the details and from the Vertica. And also, when you kind of try to do some sort of upgrade scenarios, if you have Vertica configured, then we do have to upgrade our database schemas in the backend. So in those cases also we would kind of rely on those XML files to connect and do some sort of database changes. But these are our core XML files which are used to have a database communication.
So this, I'm going to turn off my part of the screen as far as picture, but
Yeah.
so these are, yeah, so these are how it tells you if it's embedded. Some of the things in there is the minimum maximum pool size support it's using. This is the local database, so it's going to say 127.0.0.1. If this was a second primary server, this would have where the database exists. If you had an external database, it would have, again, where it exists and which database and what zone. So as Arvind said, this is all the connection information, and then you have the DMA property mappings, or account properties. Open with Notepad, and so the password's obfuscated, but it's Zen admin. So when you do Zen admin, here's your password. So I did a Zman DGC, and you can see here what the password would be if I needed to connect Service Desk to it or ZRS to it. But it gets that from the file, and the code deobfuscates it. So thanks, Arvind, for that. That's good. Yeah,
Yeah.
Vertica is a new one. I don't have it installed yet, so.
Yeah, one more thing is these files shouldn't be changed unless and until you're actually migrating your databases, and it's good to have a backup just in case somebody's trying to change and don't remember what was the earlier values in those. So it's always good to keep a backup of these and not try to modify unless you know that from database side something has changed and that needs to reflect here. So yeah,
And
just
each
be aware of
primary
that.
server would have a different set, right?
Usually they all have the same configuration unless and until you change for only in case of embedded where you have the IP address of the server hosting the database, but in other cases it just
Oh, there'll be
points to the first server.
right because it's
Uh,
an external data. Yeah, I was referring to
right.
the internal database. So
Right, but
Yeah,
for external, they're pretty much identical, no separate configurations there, unless and until you are kind of tuning your servers for scalability and other performance reasons. They
sure.
they should be identical.
And we could test the connections. An easy way to test the connections is running either the ZCC Diagnostics, which let me bring that up. The diagnostic page, you can see what's going on here. We can see Postgres is, oh, let me move up. See, I don't have a Vertica down here. You can see that here. And then I have my audit in Zenworks, and you can see the size, what type it is. And then the ZDC, which I found the ZDC, I mean, we use it for upgrades, but boy, we use it for just data integrity on the database as well, right, Arvind?
Yeah, so yeah, it does is actually for database integrity and as well as testing your connections. So it's a good test, like if you are doing some sort of database changes where you want to switch to a new database of same or different type. So in all those cases, without having your applications to recognize that change, you can just run a ZDC and pre-validate those things are working before you actually turn them on at the server-side services. So that's a good way to validate your connections and settings.
I had an issue with a customer recently where um, we could not connect for some reason. It seemed like he had an external database and we couldn't connect from the primary server. And we were looking at the server to see if there's any corruption or anything like that. And actually running the ZDC, I could get through to it through the audit, but I couldn't get through it through the Zenworks database. And so I knew at least the firewall was good. So I mean, there's ways of it testing different aspects of your environment. And basically, what had happened is the Zenworks user on the database itself had been changed, so we couldn't connect with that. But at least we were able to check these things out with that ZDC. So it's actually quite useful in many aspects.
Yeah, and many times I've even seen that if you're, in case of especially in SQL servers where you have a user database user is tied to domain users, and they have different policies where domain user password would change, then at some point your server stopped communicating with databases because of those policies changing the passwords for the users. So it's always good to keep the users with the different policies so that their password doesn't change. That way you don't have to come back to the server and reconfigure your XMLs to talk to them. But the easy way to test even without going into ZDC is just log in from any server. And if you're able to see the login page and get in through, that means you are able to connect from ZCC to that server into the database. And if you go to diagnostics, you would further see what connections are, I mean, what database status is. In case your audit is down or Vertica is down, you can go and check from diagnostic as well.
Sure. So if you get the
Yeah.
basic ZCC login, you know you're connected because it brought that up. So yeah, that's a good point. It's an easy check there. And then yeah, the diagnostics which I just displayed is over here. So good. Oops, I don't think I pressed it. Okay, so um, let's move on. ZSD for service desk. There's a test button down there to test connection. Again, when you're connecting service desk, you'd want to let me minimize this. Go here. You would need this as well for your connection for Zenworks integration. All right, so when you're doing that, when you get to that documentation, you'd see that there. Let me bring this back. All right, let's see what's next. Access utilities. So most databases have some type of native utility for like Oracle, or the Sybase had the ASA, or MS has its own. But there's others like dbeaver. There's pgadmin 4 for Postgres, which is actually its native. Um, so some of these, and you know, Arvin, and you can't see my screen, but I played with my dbeaver and I could not get that hex to work. So we'll cover this in a little bit as we do. Well, we can cover it now. Um, so starting off, what I'll normally do, because I still consider myself a noob at database, is I'll find the right table that I'm trying to execute, right? So I want to get the information from the table. Let's see if I can make this bigger for you. That's a little bigger, but I want to do this because I don't need that really. And then we need to, I can't get that font bigger. But I'll find like Z bundle, and then I'll say I want to find my Putty um, bundle, so I can get information from it. And so that way you could do a where. So if I were to, the nice thing about, I like about the queries is I can easily do a dash dash if I did something wrong as I'm building it, and then rerun it. If I run this whole thing, it will just it ignores the dash dash. Okay. So as I'm building it out, I can slowly see what's going on. And then make sure I get the syntax correct. Let's see. So I did there's a setting in here, file properties, and I'm in dbeaver, and I'm going to editors, and I'm going to data editor, and binary. Should be able to turn this to hex, and apply and close, which it was on, and then you wouldn't have to worry about doing this other decode part, telling it it's hex. So for instance, if I run this right here, which is a bundle, I get nothing in the list, so it cannot find the 0xc GUID. But if I run this with the same GUID, so that's something I was working on last night. I couldn't seem to get that to work with dbeaver. It's the latest one, 7.3.5, but there are some syntaxes that each of the database, what I'm getting across is the databases each have their own syntax, and you need to pay attention to those. And so this has the hex setting for in this presentation. And then the same thing with pgadmin 4, which let me see if I have that. I think I have that over here. Yeah, I have that over here. Bring this over. Yeah, we'll just do full screen here. So for instance, here's Z bundle. I'm just looking at my bundles here. Okay, and there's all my bundles, all the information in the table for bundles, right? And then I say, well, I want my ZUID and my display name and category from Z bundle. Notice that the ZUID, which is our GUID, says binary data, right? And so it's going to tell me that because I haven't told it that there's hex data in there. So if I do this extra encode, it'll now give me, it'll say, oh, you're hex. Okay, let me make that for you. And there's our data information. Okay. So if I wanted to do simple apps, so see how I'm building it out. But if I had an error, like earlier I had a comma in here, and then this won't work. You know, it's going to tell me, hey, at or near from, there's a problem. Well, yeah, it's the comma right here. So I was real nervous about when I was an administrator about doing the database because we were an Oracle shop. And so I really did only select statements, and now that's pretty much what I do. But know that select statements are not impacting to the system at all. So you can do select statements all day long, and it won't impact the system. But as you you can start joining tables. And for instance, this one is joining for the server rules. And you can see I have doing the device host name, type, parent. If I just did server roles, it would have listed all the table entries. But I just requested these. And then I also named this one. Oops, don't move. I also named this one as roles. Oops, wait a minute. What's going on? So I have ZZen server roles as roles. there. If I were to take the as roles out, all it is a label for my column here. So if I take as roles out, we can, what did I do? There, I broke it. As roles. I don't know why that would have broken it. Oh, I didn't do the whole thing, that's why. I need to highlight the whole thing. Since I just hit enter and didn't have anything highlighted, it did the whole, everything above the line. I mean, everything in the window. So if you just highlight too, you can get that. So see, there's as, well, it still says roles. Oh, because that's the table. It's copying that one. Strike, yes, sir.
I am not able to see your, sorry to interrupt, Paul. Is this somewhere I can see your screen? Looks like not, I am the only one missing.
Oh, actually, yes. Hang on a second. Let me get Arvind in on this. Hang on a second. I probably should have done this earlier. Share. Screen. There.
Great. Thank you, Paul.
You see that? Okay, good.
Yep.
I don't really want this here. Getting congested, but that's okay. Okay, so that's just a little bit of PG admin and part of the connections over here. For instance, if you check the properties, you can see your connection. Here's that 54324, the Zen admin, and when you first create it, you need that that password. Okay. And it should connect fairly simply. It's the native for Postgres. So if you haven't used that, that's something to look into. I'm going to put this aside a little bit. So here's my dbeaver. So as I was saying, here's my setting for running this. I'm showing Arvind now. Maybe he can help us correct this. So it comes up with Putty, which is fine. But if I do this one,
Yeah, so there is a small change here.
what's that?
So instead of where you say ZOID equal to 0x, you have to do slash x. Instead of 0, just put a backslash.
Backslash X?
So backslash
Oh,
x
sorry. It's this way.
and then the grade. So that would,
Oh, the same as in
that would,
PG Admin 4, because we have that over here.
yeah. So
Oh, all right.
it recognizes the same syntax.
There we go. That's what I wanted. So if we did, I missed that portion. So with that, again, knowing the syntax for what you need to put in, but the hex is a little bit better, so you don't have to do the decode and tell it it's hex and that type of thing. So just a slash x will give you that. So there's a couple notes here. There is a TID out there, 7024768. I'm going to bring that up. And it'll also allow you to log in on a command line. Like this is a service desk going into Postgres for service desk, and how you can log in and examples. But at the very bottom we have the same thing that's over here. You have to do the slash x. I might need to put that in the dbeaver as well. So I need to add that to this area right here. So I'll add that after we're done here. Thanks for that note, Arvind. Appreciate that. So there are some tips out there, because I know everybody was using Sybase. Sybase had a GUI that was easy to use as Sybase ASA to get into the database and stuff, but that's no longer, right? So trying to make sure you're aware that some of these resources are here. So in the lab, there's some scenarios that we have for migration. We want to discuss a little bit. We talked a little bit about the migrating from Sybase or DB migration 2017, where Sybase is 2017 and no longer it's deprecated or superseded with Postgres if you're using an embedded on 2020. and you have to do that before you move to 2020. So, and there's a couple of links in here we'll get to with some videos on actually how that's done. But there's you can migrate Sybase to another DB, the new database, and you could go from Arvind. What is it? It's from either Sybase to embedded Postgres, external Postgres, or MS SQL, right?
Yeah, so you can go from Sybase to pretty much yeah, from Sybase to Postgres is what you would normally do, because if you want to go to 2020 first, and then now you're on Postgres, then at that point you can stay on Postgres because we are kind of supporting scalability. You can scale up to large number of devices, 5,000 on embedded, and even more if you are on external Postgres. But there's no migration path currently in plan. Probably post update 2, we might see something around SQL and Oracle. But currently we only support uh, the backwards, where if you are on SQL or Oracle, you can migrate back to Postgres because it's now scalable higher
Sure,
than Sybase was.
sure. And we covered a couple of these, the Zenworks database and the Vertica cluster. A couple of notes is that make sure that if you decide to take on the performance using the Vertica database for enhancing your performance, make sure the Vertica database is up and running before migrating, just to make sure that connection is there. Um, and then ZCM database migration to another platform. Of course, refer to the documentation, as Arvind said, the migration paths not yet supported are Postgres to MS SQL or Postgres to Oracle. So let's say you're growing, right? And you did the Postgres and you want to move now to MS SQL. So contact us, let us know so that we can work with you on getting that upgraded should you need that particular path. But as Arvind said, we're moving towards that direction to support those as well. Um, it does leave, when you do a migration, it does leave some information behind. Notice that the PostgreSQL is here, and then the original database for Sybase is here, and it does take up space, right? So there is a process that's coming out, either in probably an update 2 that will, I don't know if it's manual or automatic yet, but there's a process that we'll have for you so that you could free up some of that space. Because now that this particular um, server that we're looking at on the screen is 2020, I'm not going back to Sybase, so I don't need those anymore, right? So once you go, it's a point of no return is going to 2020. Okay, so be aware of that.
Yeah, but typically for a regular user, if they've already spent some time moving after 2020, they probably can take that call and try to get rid of the Sybase database stuff, because it's just probably not much of use to keep them sitting there. So they can just get rid of those files. That would help them free some space, because there's always some sort of backups that they might be carrying in the same folder. Sometimes we kind of troubleshoot and keep the backup, or sometimes the logs might just grow over time and they sit there. So it's always good to take that action and try to remove those Sybase folders, the database folder, if they're embedded. So
Yep.
that frees up a lot of space.
And then of course, as you're doing the 2017 upgrade, it creates a SQL Anywhere database backup in case you have to revert before you go to 2020. So there's other residuals in there that we can help you clean up. So if you do have that and you've migrated to 2020 and you need some cleanup, be sure to give us a call and let us know, because you won't need any of the Sybase anymore. But we're, again, to let you know, we're getting a process to get that taken care of for you. So a formal process. Some of the scenarios, like for Zenworks Service Desk and ZCM integration, again, if you migrate from Sybase to Postgres or another database, you need to change these types in the Zenworks Service Desk area, right? Because they've now changed. Now, one thing you should note is edit it. Let's see if I can, I think I have one up. Let me find my service desk. I am on, we'll show you that. Where's my service desk in here? It's right here. So I'm on 160. So let me go to 160 here, and we'll show you some of that. See if I can get this bigger for you. Okay, and I'll just do admin. I don't have my LDAP running for this sequence, but you can still get to the setup. And then under the database, you'd want to edit this if you moved over to something different. Okay. Don't and then I'm sorry. Yeah, that's if you did a service desk database change. If you did a service desk with Zenworks integrations and you've done a Zenworks database change, you again would want to go into the Zenworks database and edit this part, right? Because this is the Zenworks zone. This database over here is the service desk database, this one here. So be sure to edit this and not add new, okay? Or it's going to think it's a brand new database, and then everything that you brought in from that database will be duplicated. Very, very important that when you go into and you have Zenworks Service Desk integrations on, to not do new, but to change the existing. Okay? And then ZRS domain. Let's see what my ZRS is. ZRS, I think, is this guy here. And we're on 91. I thought it was 91. We'll go to okay, advanced. And when we log in, we should be able to. Now I'm logging into the 9443 portal. And we have Zenworks reporting configuration. And you have your domain configuration. So it's attaching to Zenworks domain, like the zone is a domain. The service desk, so each database is a domain. And you'd want to go in here and you would add. So I would add, if I upgraded this to 20.1, I would then go into Zenworks. I would actually add here and apply the same credentials that this one has, and it'll say, "Hey, it's already there. Do you sure you want to do that?" Yes, I do. Okay, it's already been upgraded to Postgres, but I don't have 20.1 on there. So, but there are also ways to do it with Service Desk as well. This is native. The Zenworks domains are native, but there is a TID out there, which you'll see in an upcoming slide, to get your Microfocus Service Desk. And Jason has done some fabulous queries on the two together. How many bundles were deployed when, how many service calls were placed for a bundle deployment, you know, or ZA upgrade or whatever. So here's a couple of Zenworks community questions. So we really appreciate the Zenworks community being out there. Know that they're always asking questions. There's people that are probably in the same predicament that you're in. So this one came in about a ZCM 2020 Postgres to MS SQL migration. And so Craig, who's on our team, went in and replied, there is a solution out here. I thought I saw a solution. Maybe it's at the bottom. Oh, not on this one. But there's ways. Oh, this is a solution here. So we'll mark them as solutions. Also, the ZSD automatically running database upgrade script. Here's another one. Again, these are monitored, and so this one feature should be available as part of 8.2, has been delivered in 8.2. So You may ask, well, where do I go for that? Basically, there's a service desk ideas exchange, which every product has an ideas exchange. This happens to be service desk, and it's under service desk, right? Then service desk ideas exchange. These are all the things that people are suggesting. Hey, can you put this in the product, right? And then make sure you go out here and vote on these. That way, they get higher attention, and if they can, now some of these take more code changes than others, so some of them may not be on the next release. But be aware that these are here and they are monitored consistently. So if you go out to Zenworks, you can go to an ideas exchange for any one of the products. And then if you wanted to accept solutions, um, this is how you if you posted something and somebody responded, you can actually accept it as a solution now, and it has that green triangle, which makes it an easy eye catching to go to if you're in the same predicament and go, I need, to know the answer to this, and you find somebody else having the same problem with the solution. Well, there you go. So that's a nice little ad that they put in to the Zenworks community. Okay, Arvin, we're getting into documentation and best practices. I put some best practices out here for database administrator for ZCM, and then the Vertica database is another database on its own that's new in 2020, so it has its own section. We have service desk best practices, and then ZRS configuring. And here's that TID or that documentation it's on the solution site for adding service desk, okay, to ZRS. And be aware that you can download these particular versions, and of course these below here is 7.3 and higher, okay. So you'd pick the right database you're connecting to and follow the bouncing ball basically. So it's really been helpful to connect to ZRS this way. Um, Database maintenance. Again, are you a Zenworks administrator? Do you have to maintain that Postgres or even the MS SQL or Oracle? Some shops are the smaller ones. They have, you wear many hats. But here we have a listing of disaster preparedness and recovery and database configuration and administration documents. Be sure to have in your schedule, as Arvind pointed out earlier, full database backups, check the data integrity occasionally, and of course, before upgrades, have the full backup and check the data integrity. Be sure to check disk space and time sync between the external database and your zone servers. Very, very important. Even it can even throw off like remote control. So be aware that those things to look into. Arvin, did you have anything else that you wanted to expound on for preparedness and recovery and maintenance?
Uh, yeah, mostly from the backup is perspective is what is more important, that if your DBA or you yourself are taking a daily full backup of your databases, that will make it easier to avoid any sort of disruption or kind of system down kind of problems. Uh, but yes, you have to keep a note on the disk space. That's really important because oftentimes it might happen that your remote database or the database sitting on the server that may be just running out of disk just because sometimes we see the transaction log is growing or there's not log backups or other aspects which are kind of configured. So those kind of things just all of a sudden starts uh, impacting the functionality at random. So you might be able to log into ZCC, but certain things stops working, or maybe user authentication doesn't work, or a bundle creation doesn't work because your database might be running full in the logs or the log size, I mean. But those kind of random nature of functionality issues can starting would start appearing if you're not aware that what's happening on your database side. So yeah, of course you can check some of those information in your diagnostics too, whether you can check your sizes and other things. But yeah, if you have a DBA, then they are the best people to to notify you, or they have their own set of alerts and jobs to run on the databases, so they get to know if something is really getting to an alarming level or getting them some sort of indications that things are starting to fail. So yeah, that's a good way to keep an eye on all this uh, operational stuff from database side.
Great. Yeah. And ZCM 2020 Update 2 is going to be different. Arvind and I are in some training sessions now on learning what the changes are, and there's some architecture changes and stuff. Um, so, w- what differences will we see with Update 2? Now, I'm going to put you on the spot, um, but if you don't know, since it's so new, and I encourage everybody to go on the beta so that you can get some more insight on this directly from us. But Arvind, do you have any update 2 issues that might be different?
One thing is we from Postgres sizes we have upgraded to a newer version 12 dot I think 4 instead of 11 dot X that we are using. Uh, from supportability perspective of the versions, I think the older SQL, I think 2012 and onwards are still supported. Uh, and same goes with Oracle, I think 12C and higher would be supported. We might have another database coming in for a feature called anti-malware. So there might be a third optional or configurable database that you might need besides Zenworks and Audit. So, so those are some of the initial changes that we are aware, but again, at the backend level, there may be so many new things that would appear, but from the version support and configuration perspective, those are the basic things. But again, we're gonna have a separate, maybe a guide or a best practices to let you know about what are those changes and how they would impact as you move to update two. So yeah, just keep an eye. And as Paul mentioned, that it would be good to watch out for trainings that are coming in the beta sessions that we organize.
Sure. And Jose mentions we recommend database dumps to be stored on an external storage like NFS or otherwise. That way, if the server has a problem, then you can recover it more quickly. So
Yeah,
that's
that's a good suggestion.
good suggestion.
Agreed.
Thanks, Jose. I appreciate that. And here's the video references. There's for going from 2017, those that are still on 2017, there's a series of videos for migrating to get to 2020. The first one is details about it. The next three are demos. So it's a demo going from internal Sybase to PostgreSQL, and then a demo on MSSQL to PostgreSQL, and then also using the 2020 installer. So you can, if you have this particular, if you have this PowerPoint, or if you go out to the support site or ZENcast, you'll see these out there. Um, ZSD database migrations, we don't get a lot of those, though we've had a few, and we've also migrated from. This is a little different. It's not really a database. It's from domain to domain. So we're improving the documentation all the time in Service Desk. Um, and again, the nice thing, if you remember, if you've done Service Desk and you bring up 812 and you migrate to, uh, well, in the past, if you were at, let's say, 7.x going to 8, you'd have to go in and reconfigure, or not reconfigure, but approve the configuration of the Service Desk connections to the database, and they've automated that now with the 8.2 upgrade. So as you go from 8.1x to 8.2, by the time you open up the Service Desk console, it's already done the database. So that's a great improvement. We're constantly improving those things to automate it. There's the two cookbooks down there, TID 7024089 and 7023510 for Service Desk. Feel free to open those up, and you can comment on those or send me other information. Again, those are for upgrading to different newer versions. Um, we had a discussion, Arvind, with some developers about the ZCM 2017 to ZCM 2020, and part of the discussion was, and you probably saw this thread last week or the week before, as we migrated the data from Sybase to PostgreSQL, there won't be much fragmentation. Running the commands like vacuum will not reduce the size of the DB because you've just migrated, right? But
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but we should not compare the database size of SQL Sybase to PostgreSQL because each one has a different architecture of storing tables, data, indexes, and so forth. And for example, Oracle database size will be around half of what SQL Server database size is for the same devices and stuff, right? So in one thing, it said Sybase database is bloated, and even after a migration to PostgreSQL in a few days, there's fragmentation that may happen on the database, right? So how can you expand on some of that discussion?
Yeah, so for most of the admins, unless you see that your sizes have drastically changed, it's never a concern because you know how much disk space you are having. I have seen cases where somebody's on a SQL server and want to move back to Postgres. So in cases they want to switch back to embedded and they have to account for those extra disk space that would come once the database changes from SQL to Postgres, which is kind of coming on the server. So you have to, but there's no one-to-one or comparison between the sizing. So it might appear that the size might be smaller because the way the things get stored in Postgres, the column size or the number of indexes or the tables structure, those things can determine how much of disk space you end up using when you move your databases between uh, either from Postgres to other database types or moving from Sybase to Postgres. So that way there is no clear sizing guide. But as you mentioned that fragmentation and other stuff would always come into picture. And post migration, the trend is usually the sizes are pretty much comparable. You might see a delta of 30% here and there, but they should not change. But once they come and migrate, at that point, your growth should be in a more incremental fashion, and you should not increase quite rapidly because then that means there's something wrong that you might need attention or have to let us know. But
Well,
otherwise, from sizing perspective, yeah, there's
yeah,
not much of difference. But you have to do a maintenance, of course, because as the database keeps running for longer, the lot of inserts, deletes, and updates happen. So the bloating and the fragmentation can cause size to increase over time. So those kind of defrag and vacuuming stuff for Postgres would really help to bring down the size. Yeah,
sure.
those things are good to keep an eye, and you can monitor through diagnostic the same size of the database that you have currently.
And one thing that Susan mentioned to me is make sure you're watching your patches, right? Because if you're just setting up patches and you have
Yeah.
this select vendors to use in the system all, now you're going to get everything, right? And just select what you need. So you may, it may just automatically, boom, you did patch, and now you got a much bigger database, and you can trim that down too by some of these settings for patch as well.
Yeah, especially with the CVE that we load a lot of CV information into your databases. So that might cause a sudden jump in your database size, or but without changing too much of stuff, if you're kind of not making changes, things would not grow drastically. But if you're bringing up a lot of bundles or subscription patches or caching them, you created a new patch policy and you defined a rule, and that ends up caching a lot of cumulative updates or security updates. That might increase your disk storage. But yeah, that's a different discussion. But altogether, you have to be
Sure.
aware of what settings you're changing, and if that can lead to growth in your database size, that pretty much understood and explainable.
And the size of your content, right? I mean, if you're
Yeah.
using the repository for everything, which is great, that's what it's for. Keeping an eye on that. So great. So we have some. I'm now on to command zman DGC, DGCA, and then there's Vertica get credentials. Um, One thing to watch, you can always tail minus F the loader messages. There's a zman QL, and I forgot to get the rest of that command, dash dash type, and you can do system updates or different things there. So there are some commands as far as that you'll need for getting connection type or the files you need to see where those connection types are. But these are just a couple of, examples that I did for database queries when I just start off. I find, I'm looking for, normally it's star, so I'm going to do select everything from a table, see what I need, and then I'll narrow it down to columns and then filter it out in that way. So this is just a short sheet on what I do. But notice a few things at the bottom. Putting in a double dash, which we did, will help ignore anything beyond that. Make sure you close the statement with a semicolon, and I think Oracle's big with that, right? Right, Arvind?
Yeah, so the syntax would vary as you said, Paul. Uh, so exactly, are you saying what's exactly your question here?
So
So with article,
like the Oracle really requires or requests commits and a close with a
yeah,
semicolon and stuff like that.
correct. So yeah, for especially for Postgres and Oracle, they are kind of identical in the design architecture. So the syntaxes also pretty much are kind of similar, but especially the SQL syntaxes. But more or less, they both require commit. So if you're kind of doing changes, which most admins don't need to do, like unless you're kind of doing a disaster recovery where you have to switch the database role or a master primary role, you don't
Sure.
have to really do insert, update, or deletes. But otherwise, if you're doing them, you need a commit, which does not require for SQL. This does auto commit on a regular basis. So that's one difference. Yeah.
Good, good. Yep. Okay, and then some of the database queries, a couple more database queries here. So you can see it's just grown like Z system update stage. Let's go ahead and bring, where's my PG admin? Let's minimize this. And let's go over to, I don't, oh, I can do this one. Yeah, we can do this one. Well, it's just showing how I've just different commands because I'm just pulling out different tables. The nice thing about this is on most of them, if you start typing select, let's say star Z, and it should give me, I'm looking for the, where it gives me my drop down, Z bundle, Z bundle, oh, from, because I didn't do it from. See how it starts giving you what you might need and narrowing it down for you for the syntax. So be aware that some of these will actually do that for you, which really helps you create your script or your query. And that's basically what I was trying to describe here is the drop down that you can that it'll automatically do for you. Here's my SQL query. Is this, yeah, select star from. So this is my service desk item. See, so I can do that, and I can highlight. I can hit execute. Okay, I don't have a lot of items in there, but like for upgrade tracking, execute. I can now see that this went from 7.1 to 7.2. This is one of my older ones that I had in this. I migrated this one over to Postgres. So. Okay, so and then you can build it out to where you're joining over here. Whoops, you're joining and you're grouping and you're ordering by, so you can see things a little more clearly. And that's where this one comes in, um, joining different groups right here to see what your roles are for your different primaries. If we had multiple primaries, you'd see, oh, we do. We have multiple primaries, so we can see who has a cert auth role is DigiZone, which is a primary, but DigiZone 2 does not have a cert auth role. So you can see where the roles are if you're moving a server or moving roles. For instance, in ZCC, should you move the certificate authority, and I'm not in the DigiZone, but if you were to go to configuration, and you go to certificates, if we had another server that we can move this certificate role to, see move CA role, then it would change. Basically, it's just running that query and what it needs to make sure it knows that the cert auth role has been changed. Those types of things. But as you get into the queries, remember select is a pretty safe query to use. Logging, again, there's native database logging for external. Um, for ZSD, the lifetime log will have the queries, query failures in there. And then there's loader messages log and Zenworks configuration, Novell Zenworks configure log, and then some Vertica logs and some locations on those. Anything else on, and of course the dashboard represents what's going on in the database too. We have dashboards in ZCC and in Service Desk. Is there anything else on logging, Arvind, that you can expound upon?
Uh, Mostly, I think something that usually we don't have to always look into database side of querying stuff, especially if you're not on the Postgres user. But one thing we also have is sometimes you might see certain functionality issues, and Hibernate is what we use for making the backend calls. So there are ways to tweak that logging and enable Hibernate logging that's defined in one of our XML files, where you can actually start seeing the queries that is getting passed onto database when certain things are done. So that's one way you can also get to know from logging perspective what's happening uh, around databases when you are trying to run certain task related to certain functionalities. From reporting side, like if you're running a ZCC report or any other reports, there is a separate logging under, I think, um, under Tomcat, there is a web apps folder and there's a webinf logging XML file where you can enable the logging to debug, and that would allow to run or view any of the queries that is involved with the ZCC reports. So if you're running a ZCC reports on certain inventory related product installed or hardware items, you can see all the exact queries that's being passed for that. So that way, if there is something inaccuracy, we can track it down and figure out if those queries are wrong. So that's kind of helpful for troubleshooting purpose.
Ah,
So
excellent.
yeah, those are the two changes I think. But mostly Hibernate is not needed unless you are having a proper or some sort of issue that you are working with us. So it's just for knowledge that's another way you
Okay,
can see the database.
okay. And then of course there's tuning, documentation for tuning, which is in that some of the documents in previous slides. I do have a question about ArcSight ESM, but Baksar, I'm not sure what that is. I'm not familiar with that particular product. So if you can respond, I don't know if that's a database logging or a connection utility or whatever, but yeah, you can ping me on the side for that. I'm not familiar with that particular one, but I'll be happy to discuss that with you. Are there any other questions in chat um, besides that one, or does anybody know what ArcSight ESM is? Have you heard of that, Arvind?
Uh, Not really that we kind of integrate, but I think maybe something we can check with our product management if there's something correlation between Zenworks and Oxide here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hopefully that
but yeah,
answers Bexar's question.
yeah, it'd be good to get some additional uh, information regarding
Information
that.
on that so that we can pass it on, sure. And of course, if you're part of the betas, you're talking with the developers directly. So those types of questions or questions about, different integrations, that's a perfect time to ask in those meetings because they do a round table and everything. I just love the betas because you just get so much out of them. And then when you're ready to deploy the next version, you're doing it with more confidence and skill. You have some insight behind it. So um, let's see. I don't have anything else. Does anybody else have anything? Um, Chat, you have anything else to discuss? I don't see anything else from anybody. I'm glad everybody was able to come. I hope this was informative to you. Arvind, I really appreciate you coming aboard today and helping me out, backing me up. And I think we're good. I don't have any other questions in chat, and I thank everybody for joining. And I just want everybody to be safe, and we hope to see you in a couple weeks. Okay? And we made it through it without my BSOD. Shh. Everybody, we'll see you. Thank
Great.
you very much.
Thank you so much. Well,
All right.
I never
Oh,
knew
it's
that.
that ArcSight is a Microfocus product stack A. Thank you,
Yeah, it's
Etienne.
our product, yeah, but we
Okay,
didn't know exactly
uh,
how it's kind of related with what
gotcha.
Zenworks is doing. Yeah, so
Thank you for that insight. Yeah, we can
yeah,
look into that a little bit more. Thank you so much for that response. Okay, everybody, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here and enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Take care. So, Jose, I see your question. Are there any Zenworks user groups that involve product managers? Um, are you talking about the forums? Jason's on the forums quite often. I don't know if that's what you're referring to, the community groups, and he's very responsive to customers as well. So, um, Jose's as far, I mean, thanks, Don. Have a great have a great week. So, Jose, what are you referring to? Well, okay, guys. Thank you everybody for being here. Take care.